So hey everyone, and welcome to part 5 of this progression series. So I wanted to thank you first of all because if you're watching this video, you're most likely one of my patrons on patreon.com. I really do appreciate that, and thanks for hanging out and following along. So this is part 5 of the series where we're going to talk about the still photos that I captured using the Litchi app to create a flight path that's repeatable every single time. So that's awesome. And you're seeing the pop-up up in the upper right-hand corner. Sorry about that. My computer's still hooked up to the net, so I get my little messages here and there. But anyways, we're taking a look at the construction site from the perspective of a still photograph. We've taken a look at the site itself. We've talked about the video. We've talked about the ortho mosaics. We've talked about offloading and managing some of your images. And we're going to talk a little bit more about images and another application. We quickly talked about Kino before, but as you can see, we're here on Lightroom Classic. When it comes to image management, I'm still a die-hard Lightroom fan. I've been using Lightroom for well over a decade now. It's streamlined my workflow for a lot of things, be it my regular photography work that I did for years, portrait sessions, weddings, you name it, we shot it. And when you come away from some of those big events, you've got a lot of photos to deal with and handle. Now, what we're looking at here on screen are some photos collected on this construction progression setup for November of 2019. And you can see these images are very similar. So in Lightroom, I can actually select multiple images to compare or to take a look at, or we can just look at an individual one. But I wanted to pull these up specifically for you because I wanted to show you what's going on up here. So we've got Untitled 8, and I never worry about titling things in Lightroom. I worry more about keywording things, so I'm clicking over here so I can find things very fast. I've got Clark Wayland, November, and stills. And when I look at the other one here, Untitled 8-2. That was shot in October 26th. And this one in the keyword says Clark Wayland, October, and stills. Get the idea? What's really nice is in the Lightroom library, you can search on your keywords. So one of the things that I do when I offload images into Lightroom is I make sure to, keyword them like a crazy man. So as many keywords as possible. In the case of this particular job, though, it's a pretty straightforward one. I didn't need a bunch of keywords, just Clark Wayland October or Clark Wayland November. That gives me enough of a clue. So when I import those still images after I get back to the office from doing my shoot and my flight, I'm offloading video, I'm offloading stills, I'm managing with Kino, and then I'm really nitpick managing with Lightroom when it comes to the still photos. Now, since you are a patron here on this Patreon setup, there are several videos on here that are a couple of years old, but they're still relevant. So you have access to them, and it's my Lightroom workflow. So I'm big on designing a streamlined workflow when it comes to using Lightroom. And you do have those videos available to you here. While they're a little dated and Lightroom has changed a bit, the overall Lightroom interface and the overall workflow of Lightroom remains unchanged for over a decade. So the videos that are here will really help you along if you're trying to improve your Lightroom skills. So I would suggest checking those videos out. They're part of you being a patron anyways. So go watch them. If you're interested in any kind of photography beyond drone photography, we talk a lot about editing and exporting as well. So I would say check that video out, or check that video series out, and make use of it. It's available to you. So what we're looking at here, as you can tell, taking the quick look, we've got an image that was shot on November 23rd at 9:32 a.m. And then we've got its dimensions, and we've got an image that was shot on October 26th at 8:24 a.m. Remember, the sun's coming up at a different time now, so seasons are going to impact when you're shooting. What time is sunrise? What time is sunset? That's going to change throughout the year, and that's going to impact your shadows. It's going to impact the overall view of the sites, and so you got to keep that in mind when you're doing the shooting. If I was out there in November at 8:24 taking these shots, there would be much longer shadows in here. It would be darker overall because the sun was rising later, so it's at a different point in the sky than it was in October. So one of the big things and one of the most powerful things on my deliverables for my clients is simply these still photos. The video is great, the ortho is great, but those still photos tell a pretty big story from month to month. You might have a client who's day to day or week to week. So you're going to be shooting a lot and you're going to need to manage all of this. So in thinking about the management, that's why I'm a big proponent of Lightroom. So watch those other classes. Anyways, these two images show me a lot and tell me a lot of the story already. So over here on the right-hand side, we've got October 26th. First thing that jumps out at me, let's zoom on in here. October 26th, we still had exposed wood here. We had some things going on the rooftops, and looks like some cables and things out there. And then looking down here, we also had this green little lift vehicle as well. Now, looking over on the left-hand side from the photo from November 23rd, we've got some concrete down here. We've got some parking areas going in. And believe me, since I've been working with this site, I've been wondering, where are they going to park all these people? Well, here's some parking areas right here. Also, they have the siding on the building now, so we can actually see this white siding in here, which we didn't have in October. Looking up on the top of the roof, see some air conditioners? I see some air conditioners. Those are air conditioners. All right. So they're getting things done up top here. Also, clearly, we've got a junk pile going on in here right now. Just probably all the boxes broken down from the air conditioners. Compared to the other one, nothing went into those. And moving over here on the left-hand side for November, we can see more air conditioners. And over here on the right-hand side, same building, not as many air conditioners. By the way, that white siding in November is on this building as well. And it is not on the same building the previous month. We also see that different things are being moved around here. I'm also going to take a zoom in. Let's just take that zoom right in here. Some more parking right in here. And in the previous month, back in October, we had someone parking in the dirt. Clearly one of the workers in there was parked in there. So we do have some more development. It looks like we've got more parking spots going through here that we didn't have previously. So all of that is very telling. By the way, if you can't tell, we had some bad weather in November. That's why we've got this muddy looking site. So at a quick glance for the people who are interested in the overall development of this site, this one image tells them a very large story. And that story is what's getting completed. So we know that we've got the rooftop stuff going on. It's very clear that we've got a lot of air conditioning units going in. Even the next building, we can see air conditioning units going in. And that last building over there, everything is not completed there. They're still working on the siding, and they're missing the air conditioner units there. So we know at a very quick glance what's come along in the past month. So, and I'm doing a compare with these two. So in Lightroom, in the Lightroom library, we can compare different images if we want to. I'm going to hit the G key here. That gets me back to my grid viewer. So as you're looking along here, we can see which ones are which. So we've got Untitled 6, and I'm pointing up here to Untitled 3. So we've got a different view of the buildings with the still photographs as well. All of this was made possible, once again, by the Litchi app. So I created a flight plan manually at my first visit where I flew around the buildings. I set waypoints. I set my gimbal where I wanted them, where I wanted it, so that we would have these particular views over and over again. So we're looking at October 26th right now. And as you can see, when we're looking at October 26th, hey, we don't have those air conditioners that I pointed out before. Those were all completed in November, not in October. But I can easily go through and look at each of the shots and the angles that I took them at, all of those photos, all of those specific waypoints are saved in the Litchi app. The heading of the camera is saved in the Litchi app. The gimbal down tilt is saved in the Litchi app. And all of that goes into allowing us to get images that are very close to the last images from the last month. And, you know, even these big changes like the tower over here. So they got this cool little clock tower thing going on. And in that November shot, let me hit the G key. Let's scroll down to November. And that tower's got a lot more completion going on. So that was one thing I skipped over when we were looking at those two particular images. But so what I do is I actually put in last month and this month's images. I match them up, and then I can make a really great quick slideshow on my website, on the private web page for the clients. So let's go grab Firefox here really quick. And we're going to go take a look when this is done. Being a slow network, sometimes that happens. Let's see. And okay, so I'm going to take a moment to log into this website, and then we'll be back and we'll take a look at the latest progression web page. All right, so you didn't get to see my passwords or my login. Sorry about that, but I always like to keep those private. And actually, I've been building the new deliverable web page, which we're going to talk more about in the next segment of this online series. But I'm going to scroll down really quick. There's our progression video. But there we go. We've got those still photos. So what I did is I actually exported those still photos from Lightroom. And in the export, I could actually put a date. I could put some kind of watermark onto the images as I exported them. So I exported October and November, and I matched up each of the images. So let's move on and see. Okay, so there's November. Now, I had mentioned this previously in the video segment, and I want to mention it here. When you look at these, there might be a slight variation between that angle and where the camera is pointed, ever so slight. And sometimes that occurs due to stronger winds when I'm flying. Sometimes maybe the GPS isn't quite spot on to the last point. So sometimes the drone gets slightly bumped around in the air for whatever reason, and the images might be slightly different from image to image. But overall, let's hit that October, and then let's hit that November. So set back just a touch. So maybe the gimbal down tilt wasn't spot on. We're not sure, but these images are definitely shot from the same location. They're displaying the changes. So when you do these still images for progression, you might find yourself saying, boy, that shifted ever so slightly. How can I correct that? My recommendation is that you don't waste a lot of time on correcting that. There's always going to be small little idiosyncrasies image to image, but overall you can see that we're shooting for the same spot. One of the other things that gives you that perception of movement is the difference in shadows between each of them. So the shadows are much longer in the October one here, and the shadows are a little shorter, and they're also at a different angle in the November one. So as we start doing these things, let's say you were doing day-to-day ones at the same exact time, you can probably get them to feel much more synced up. You have to remember that this particular client job that I'm doing, we're doing month to month. So I'm only flying once a month for them to compile these. And so time of day, shadows, all those types of things are going to lead to the perception that there's more movement between image to image than there really is. So just a slight shift there. And then there we are with the tail end that we zoomed in on before. So ever so slightly off with each one. Now you could spend time in Photoshop or Lightroom cropping and resizing to get these to be a perfect absolute match. I don't think your clients are going to worry about that too much. They need to see the overall changes of the site. They want to see that this concrete went down because they were expecting the concrete to go down. They want to see that the siding has been completed. They want to see that, yes, between last month and this month, we have the air conditioners up now where we didn't previously. Those are the big things that's going to be interesting to them. They're not looking for the most beautifully edited images. And as you can see in here, we've got some haze in the sky, and we really did have haze in the sky. And on the previous flight, we had haze in the sky as well because we had controlled burns going on in Arizona. We had a lot of smoke settling in. So the next question is, do you need to sit down and massively edit these to get the lighting and everything spot on? My initial gut instinct says no to me. So there we are with the first shot, which is where my truck is parked down here. This is where we're launching the drone from while we're doing the work. And just moving to the next one, I can already see we've got more stuff on the roof. We've got the air conditioners over here. I can't zoom on this one because I'm on the website. But at a quick glance, if you're interested in the progression of this site from a construction standpoint, you can definitely see between October and November the major changes. So there we go. As I said at the beginning of this one, I would highly recommend, since you have free access to that Lightroom class, even though it's a little older, if you're going to be managing hundreds, if not thousands of photos from your drone jobs, whether it's real estate, construction progression, pipeline inspection, cell tower inspection, whatever it is, you're going to be generating a lot of images. And with Lightroom, you can handle all those images. Now, if you only have the money on hand to have one thing for managing, you might want to think of Kino, as we had gone over before, because Kino can manage your images, it can manage your audio, and it can manage your video. You're not going to be doing still photography editing in Kino. So there's part of what it's missing. And with Lightroom, you can do full-on editing for all but the most complex tasks. So Lightroom is it's a big thumbs up for me. Adobe does do the Creative Cloud. I'm not sponsored by Adobe. They do the Creative Cloud where you can get Lightroom and Photoshop for one simple price per month. And if you have Lightroom and Photoshop on hand, then you've got all your drone photography needs covered. So, but if you don't want to do that monthly subscription, Kino can manage all of that for you. It's just not going to help you editing still images. So that's why I'm a big proponent of Lightroom. All right, in the final segment of this particular series, we're going to have a conversation about this web page that you're seeing here. So on the web page, we've got just a still image just showing off that particular day. We have a video shot from November. We've got our job site stills, and we've got that cool ortho mosaic that we played around early on in this particular series. So part 6 will be coming up next, and we're going to talk about presentation and deliverables for your clients and about why I chose to build this customized web page. We'll see you in the next section.